Here is a comment video describing the vocal techniques I used when I sang Blue Bayou by Linda Ronstadt. Overall, the main thing I needed to make sure I did was keep good posture and keep the back of my mouth open. Lift the soft palate, keep the larynx neutral to low, and I accomplished that with a little bit of a sob sound, like, oh, low, like, oh, I'm crying, but not that kind of cry, a low sob. So let's start listening. I feel so bad, I got a worried mind. Right there, I'm starting out with a very relaxed approach. Sometimes when a lot of people, including myself, sing in chest voice, we kind of grab it. I feel so bad, I got a worried mind. This I really opened. Feel, oh, it's like you're saying, whoa. But that was key to getting that rich sound at the beginning. I'm so lonesome all the time since I left my baby behind on Blue Bayou. And then on Blue Bayou, that note is, I'm gonna guess it's between C and E, C4 and E4. It feels like it's not in the lowest register of, below C for me. It feels like it's still in chest dominated range, but if I had grabbed that ooh, Blue Bayou, blue, that larynx moves up just a little bit. Blue. So keeping the larynx down, keeping that totally relaxed. Blue Bayou. So it's got the feeling of head voice. Saving nickels, saving dimes, working till the sun don't shine, looking forward to happier times on Blue Bayou. I'm going back someday. All right, so this is what makes the song hard. This and the last note. I'm going back someday. So we've got a continuation of that sob approach, and a tiny little glissando up into that note. I'm going, so I can get connected as I go up there rather than coming in with, I'm going, because if you come in right on that note with a total hard glottal onset, it ends up pulling you into a harder chest voice than you need, and it disrupts the balance of air and muscle, and you get way too much muscle. I'm going, like that. We don't want that. We want to feel like, I think that's a C5, if I remember correctly. So it's in a head-dominated mix range. It's not in that middle voice. It is in the head-dominated mix. It's still a mix, but you need to have it dominated by head, or at least I do, and most people would in that range. I'm going back someday. And so to make that have some ring to it, it's definitely going through the mask, like everything else that I'm doing in this song is. But that is what gives it kind of some bite, that ring through the mask plus that sob. I'm going back someday. I am not warmed up for this song today. Let's keep listening. Come what may to Blue Bayou, where the folks are fine and the I had to work on folks are fine and the world is mine. That was getting a little folks are fine and the world is mine, and I had to bring the corners of my lips in a little bit and make it fine and mine. Those high notes often need, on an often need a little bit more tall space. A lot of vowels often need a little more tall space. Fine, mine, and not fine, mine. Because if I went sideways, like with my mouth, where the folks are fine and the world is mine, it just gets a little nasty. It's a little prettier. Fine! And there's a sense of that mask really resonating. I literally feel a sense of my voice coming out of my front cheekbones. The world is mine on Blue Bayou, where the fishing boats. That might be where, I think that might be a D or a D flat. What note is that? I want to know. I just checked it. I was wrong. That ooh, fine. that was a B, that was not a C. So that was a note that is very tempting to pull your chest voice all the way up. And that's a bit too high for most people to pull their chest voice all the way up. So I mixed that a little bit. But now when we get to fishing boats, that's a C sharp. So that is right over the next passaggio. Not the main passaggio, but you're in your head dominated range now. We're no longer in that middle range. We're in head dominated. So fishing boats. So that was just a little lighter mix on that note. And I had to make sure it wasn't, and like the proper vowel shape really helped on that note. It was a tricky one. More fishing boat. I needed it kind of like an on that rather than an I. Fishing boat. That I got too nasty as well. With their sails afloat. Sails had a lot of I put a lot of in sails with their not a. Sails afloat. If I could only. Same thing on I. It's not I, it's I. That familiar sunrise. Here's another challenging part of the song. If you were pulling chest way up to that range, if you had been pulling, or if I had been pulling chest with bad vocal technique all the way up to that note, then it would have been very hard to relax and come down into this quiet section immediately following. But since I was singing with good technique, I had no problem getting back down there. Through sleepy eyes, so that's ringing off the front of the roof of my mouth. Sleepy eyes. In other words, kind of the mask. It still feels like, it doesn't feel like up here. It feels like up here, but it's ringing even though it's quiet. Is how happy I'd be. Gonna see my baby. So again, back to the very relaxed gun, opening my larynx, not opening my larynx, lowering my larynx, opening the back of my mouth, lifting the soft palate, and making sure I'm supported with good airflow. Baby again, gonna be with some of my friends. Maybe I'll feel better again on Blue Bayou. And in that section too, rather than grabbing onto a harder, more muscular chest voice, I'm using a light mix in the chest range, but it feels like head voice. It's like going, ooh, down to that range. Feels like head voice, but it's in chest. And that's why it sounds so different from like my normal approach. Just my natural way of singing might be, gonna see my baby again. A little more muscle on that. A little bit thicker vocal cord, a little bit more muscular resistance. Saving nickels, saving dimes, working till the sun don't shine. Looking forward to happier times on Blue Bayou. If you're wondering, I'm not even paying attention to what I look like when I stop the film. If you're wondering why there's not a whole lot of difference in the distance to the microphone when I'm singing louder, there's some distance, but I didn't make a big difference. The way that I did that was I had the gain turned up pretty low. If you looked at the waveform in Logic and saw how big the waves were when I sang the quiet stuff, they'd be tiny. They're very small. And then that gave me enough headroom to be able to really belt the loud stuff and not overload the input. And so I gave myself only a few more inches. And then in mixing, I just chopped up the regions and I bumped the gain on the quiet stuff and I brought down the gain on the loud stuff so that it evened out a bit more. Where the folks are fine and the world is mine on Blue Bayou. And then another thing we've got Blue Bayou, so we've got this ooh ooh Blue Bayou, that sounded awful. But lifting the soft palate and making sure to get a pure ooh. Ooh, and not like an ew. Blue Bayou or anything like that. Let's skip forward past the solo. So, oi, boy of mine. So that would be very heavy if I brought my chest voice all the way up there. I'm not even going to try. Boy. So that's a more closed vowel, oh, rather than like ah. But it still is aimed out the front of my face, out my mask. Boy of mine. Actually, I think I might have felt it a little higher here in my mask, not my teeth, where I was pointing. And then it's by my side, the silver moon and the evening. The only remaining real challenge that's different in this song was that last note. Oh my God. I'll never be blue. My dreams come true. On blue. So I had to practice this this last note like 20 times to get it right. So here is what is going on in this last note, at least the way I sang it. And I tried to sing it as much like Linda as I could. Blue, that one being a closed vowel, and with the tone that I wanted to get on that, I used a head-dominated mix. Woo, so it feels light and round. Woo, but then on bye, I used a chest-dominated mix on that, even though it's higher. Bye. Not warmed up for this, but it was a heavier muscle, a heavier balance on the word bye. It's also an open vowel, so it's easier to do it on that one. And then back to a head-dominated mix for that very highest note, which I kind of needed to send up and back. So I had to really think about a tiny little opening for that last note, a really pure kind of puny sound after coming right off of this big muscular bye. So it was a really tricky note because I went from light mix to a heavier mix to a tiny light mix up high. And here we go. Blue.